This texter says, today's vote is progress, at least in respect of the UK's position, especially given that we did not follow the US lead as we usually do. But this ceasefire call still seems to be conditional on the release of the hostages. Yeah, what's wrong with that? Which we know Hamas will not do unless it's a total and final ceasefire, not a temporary 2-week ceasefire. So essentially, today's vote was symbolic, but will not lead to an actual ceasefire on the ground. We still have a long way to go. I mean, you indicate from that as though you think that, Hamas don't need to release any more hostages. Well, I think that's a very odd thing to say. Sean says, you asked what the UK should do next. An arms embargo, like other influential nations have done, would be a good move. Well, we did talk about that the other night, didn't we? Let's go to Anne in Barnet. Hello, Anne. You're a first-time caller. Welcome.
Hi, hello. Thanks for having me.
What would you like to say?
I would like to say that David Cameron was very concerned about the Nukhba terrorists. Those are people that raped women and beheaded babies and other people. And he was very concerned that they were not sending in the Red Cross needs to go and check on those terrorists in their jails to make sure that they're okay. But he's not so worried about those hostages that are sitting there rotting away in those tunnels without ends, without food, being raped every day.
Well, that's just totally unfair.
Why?
He mentions hostages all the time in his public statements.
But why is he worrying about Nukhba terrorists? What is he worrying about them? Why is he concerned about them?
I'll tell you what, Anne. He is like hopefully most people, worrying about international law. And in an armed conflict, the participants have to let the Red Cross check on the state of prisoners, and that's what Israel is not doing at the moment, apparently.
Including terrorists, and that applies to terrorists as well, does it?
Yes, it does. It applies to anybody who's
including
imprisoned
the people that beheaded all the English, the ISIS people that beheaded Jihadi John, etc. Did they visit Jihadi John's captors to see if they were being treated appropriately?
There is such a thing as international human rights law, which everyone's supposed to obey, and if they don't, it rather undermines the whole system of international relations.
So what about the hostages' human rights? All that they're asking of Hamas is to release the hostages. If they release the hostages, there would be a ceasefire immediately. Why is that a big ask? Why does everybody have to bash and bash and bash away at Israel when all they are asking for is to release the hostages? We are talking about women. We are talking about children. We are talking about people who were taken out of their beds without even being able to put their glasses on. Why can they not just ask the whole world to be pushing them to release the hostages, and then there will be a ceasefire? Hostages first, ceasefire second.
Well, things are never as simple as that, are they? Look, I've been a great defender of Israel over the course of this whole conflict, but as I've said over the past few weeks, the Israeli government doesn't half make it difficult to support them sometimes when they flagrantly flout the norms of international human rights law. They shouldn't be surprised if the international community, when its support somewhat dissipates, and that is what has happened. And it is entirely the fault of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and he's done it for domestic reasons. I get that. He knows he's in a weak position, so therefore he thinks that the Strongman Act will keep people supporting him. Well, it may do in some parts of the Israeli electorate, but it won't do in the international community. And it's simply wrong to say that the international community doesn't speak out for the hostages. They've done that all the way along. And for you to suggest otherwise is completely wrong. And thank you. Let's go to Abdullah in Ilford. Hello, Abdullah.
Hi, in UK.
Hello. What would you like to say?
Yeah. The thing is, look, I think moving forward in the sense, first of all, the ceasefire, obviously, it's been a long time coming. It should have been happened many months ago.
Well, there isn't a ceasefire, and I don't think there's going to be a ceasefire. All this motion has done is to call for one.
Yeah, they've called for one, but I'm saying that obviously whether it will actually happen or not, but it should be implemented. I mean, look, every day we're getting continuously innocent people losing their lives. So many people being maimed, dismembered bodies on a daily basis. This is unheard of in history. That we're just watching this live happen in front of our eyes. And we just keep on blaming Hamas and say, well, it's Hamas's fault. It's not Hamas.
Well, it is Hamas's fault. There is no question about that. And how do you respond to Anne's point about that? Well, if they release the hostages, this would be all over.
It wouldn't be over because Israel has taken over 8,000 hostages since the 7th of October. They've taken hostages as well from the other side or into the Israeli prisons, men, women, and children. So if there's a direct transfer of hostages from both sides, then maybe we can talk. But Israel is not going to do that. They categorically state they're not going to do that. So what I'm saying is that, look, we can't just all have all opinions and everything swaying on one side. We have to look at both sides of the coin. The way forward now is, first of all, I think that is, first of all, the IDF should move out of Gaza completely. They have no right to claim that land, first of all, and then we talk about the hostages. Get the hostages exchanged from both sides. Then we can talk about a long-term solution. Until then, why IDF being in the land of Gaza, being there continuously and continuously killing innocents, they're not going to win any favors.
Well, you make out as if their entire agenda in Gaza is to kill innocent people. The fact is, their agenda in Gaza is to kill Hamas terrorists, which they've actually been quite successful in doing.
I don't think so. But when you say about over 13,000 children, I don't see how any of them were Hamas.
Well, those figures are now being called into question if you read some of the reports today. But I mean, leaving that to one side, the whole point of the operation in Gaza was to eliminate Hamas. Now, they haven't eliminated Hamas. Hamas is still very much alive and kicking in the southern area of Gaza, and that's why they are so keen for Israel not to launch a military operation in that part of the country, because they know if they do, that is the way that Hamas would possibly be wiped out.
If, for argument's sake, Hamas is destroyed, let's say tomorrow all Hamas fighters are finished, they're gone, right? Then what next? Is Israel going to carry on penning in the people in the Gaza Strip and dictating how they can live their life, and in the West Bank dictating how everyone can live their life there, and ethnically cleansing everyone? It's not going to carry on. You're going to have a Hamas 2, Hamas 3, Hamas 4. You're going to have so many different groups rebelling against this oppression, regardless of whatever you want to call them. Nobody would put. If the tables were turned, believe you me, Israel and UK would be there bombing the heck out of. It would be the other way around. They'll be helping the Palestinians. But what I'm saying, the point is that nobody puts up with oppression and this continuous, subjugation and dehumanization for this long, for decades. It is not. You cannot accept. We cannot accept that somebody is going to be put down continuously for decades and not expect a reaction. There's going to be a reaction. Everybody would. You would as well.
And I don't think anybody can not expect a reaction to 1,200 innocent Israeli civilians being killed by Hamas. That really would be gross naivety, Abdullah, wouldn't it?
Of course, what I'm saying is that, look, previous to Palestinians have been having a 7th of October for decades. They had 2008, 2014, 1,400 were killed on one time, 1,200 were killed another time. What about those? So you're saying that on that case, that means the Palestinians should have reacted and killed.
The only times that Israel has launched attacks on Gaza are when the rockets keep coming over into Israel. If the rockets had never been coming over, none of this would have been happening in the first place. But we'll leave it there, Abdullah. Thank you very much indeed.